My name is Willy Bolander. I study influence, persuasion, and leadership in selling and sales management, and I teach people how to sell. In this podcast, we'll talk to some of the world's top sales leaders and see what we can learn from them. Welcome to the Sales Lab. This episode is brought to you by Rainmakers. But here's the thing, it's not the word Rainmakers. It's the word Rainmakers with no vowels. RNMKRS, Rainmakers. How will artificial intelligence change the future of sales? Will it help us do more, replace us? Join Rainmakers virtual sales competition to see AI in action, helping thousands of students get massive role-play practice and feedback on a bias-free level playing field, and it's free. To join the movement, go to rainmakers.org. Again, that's RNMKRS, Rainmakers with no vowels.org. Hey everyone, this is the final part of our three-part conversation with Lee Sellers. He again is with Citrix. And in this concluding episode, we're going to talk a little bit about challenging some sales management assumptions, some popular assumptions. And Lee has some, what I think are some pretty interesting insights. And as always, we will ask Lee for a few book recommendations. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you get something out of it. Is there anything that you think a lot or most or every salesperson and sales manager misunderstands about selling or sales management? Do you see any assumptions or beliefs that people hold that, you know, in your experience you've found? And I guess we've kind of already talked about one, right? One is the formality. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else that you think, you know, people are kind of barking up the wrong tree when they emphasize this thing?
Yeah, I think, and keep in mind, I sold for a long time. I was on sales teams because I could make money and I didn't want to manage people. So I was part of the sales community for a long time before I became part of sales management. I think where we make the mistake is the way in our view of performance management is, you know, there's always been this, you know, either you're up or out, right? And that you have to manage the bottom people out and you rely on your top people, kind of the 80-20 rule. And what I discovered years ago is that's actually not true, because your top people are going to be your top people no matter what you did. I mean, I was at Dell, I was in the top 1% and no one ever managed me. They didn't have to. If you get rid of your bottom performers, then when that person leaves, because of the nature of sales and everything is ranked, somebody else becomes a bottom performer, right? Mm-hmm. Even if their performance is exactly the same it was the month before, they're now the lowest on the team. Mm. And it is very difficult to perform when every day you come in and you see your name at the bottom of the list, right? And you almost perform under your potential or what you can actually do, just because you're not as confident because you are the bottom performer. And so what I try to talk to my managers about is, you know, we need to really, number one, treat those people who are struggling, because it may be a point in time, right? That there's something going on we don't know about. It may be bad luck, right? You can have bad luck in sales, but if you can get them past that and move them up, then, by the way, your middle performers, and even some cases your top performers, they view how you treat the low performers. And that becomes part of your culture. And we've probably been guilty of, and do we performance people out of the business? Yes. But we go through a process and we probably get more people to become successful than the people that leave the business because of performance. They don't want to be salespeople. And usually our rank and file and all of the team really respects the way we go through it versus up or out. And I've had teams, when I managed teams previous to Citrix, I would have top teams that was my philosophy, is that I really nurtured and took care of the low performers and made sure we were able to get them into the middle and higher. I've even heard, don't waste your time on low performers because it takes up too much energy to get them even to halfway. But I always think about the people that are in the middle. If all your low performers leave, then everybody ratchets down. And now you're spending all of your time hiring people and ramping people into your business. I would rather spend time developing people.
Yeah.
And that's probably philosophically, having been on large sales teams that I've differed from a lot of people is I believe top performers, they don't need me. They know what they know, they do what they do, and eventually they will run organizations. And if you can hire enough of those, you become a very good sales manager. You just got to take care of the people that struggle. It's a hard profession, and even harder if you're not doing well for a period of time. And we have plenty of examples, even in the last 6 months, where there were people that I thought were done. I just couldn't imagine, but we just stuck to our guns, and we developed and we coached and we included and respected and gave them projects. And now they're ready to be promoted. And it's almost like, okay, you stuck it out with me long enough. Now I know that you're not going to fire me. I can relax and actually do my job. But I've caught a lot of grief over the years sometimes for that. Not in the organization I'm in now. Unfortunately, I work for a boss who agrees with that. But I've also had other bosses that were like, how long are you going to keep that person on the team? And I can remember one time saying, they are really good low performers. And what I meant by that is sometimes they can be really good culture fits. They don't cause you problems. They don't hit all their numbers, but as long as they don't kill the team's numbers, because somebody's going to replace them. Somebody's always going to be the top performer and the lowest performer. It's just the nature, right?
Yeah, well, there's this, I don't know, almost mythological sort of pursuit with people, especially companies that aren't particularly effective at hiring, that, we want to hire these sort of, I don't know, unicorn salespeople, these sort of ideal, perfect salespeople, and the ones that just burst into the world at birth, cut out to go out and conquer the world of sales. And, we certainly place a lot of emphasis on the idea that salespeople can be developed, but I think there is some truth to that. There are people that are just naturals at this, but there's very few of them. If you're hiring 1,000 people, you might find 2 or 3 of those guys, and then you have to find the rest of the 997 who are really good at a lot of things, but need some developmental attention. And historically, with the kind of hiring mill situation that a lot of sales organizations have tended to follow in the past, where they bring a couple hundred people into a hotel banquet hall and give them some coffee and give them a little pitch about how much money they can make. And they know that almost none of those people are going to stick around and ask for more information, but maybe 10 stay. And of those 10, they know that most of those aren't going to actually start working for this company, but they'll be happy to get maybe 2. And then of those 2, they know that one of them is going to leave almost immediately, and the other one's very likely going to leave within the first year. But every now and then, they find somebody that stays. I've always thought that if you're trying to get such perfect, awe-inspiring people, well, why do they need you? If they're that good, what's to keep them from just starting their own business and making all this money? Most of us are somewhere in this middle ground where if you put us in the right system, in the right structure, we can do really, really well. And a lot of time better than we think we could, better than our managers perhaps thought we could. But it takes a hard work of designing a specific, deliberate development type of structure.
Yeah. And if you think about the psychology of groups of people, if you put 20 people into a group and they have to work together over time, and I'm not a psychologist, but everybody will fit into a different persona within the group, right? Somebody's going to be the outspoken one. Somebody's going to be the leader. They're just going to be that way. And in sales, it happens. And so what we try to do is have a career path and a career journey so that, we have some right now that are amazing, but they're all going to be promoted and they're all going to go to the next level. And that's a good thing because we also have some that could never become amazing, because for whatever reason, everybody cannot be simultaneously amazing, even if there's enough opportunity and resource, right? Like the human psyche doesn't allow, we have 31 people doing one job. All 31 are not going to overattain. Although it's mathematically possible, you're going to have a top third that really, really attain. And guess what? When they leave, then the people that are in the middle, they all of a sudden become, in their mind, the top people, and they get that top person confidence, and now they start delivering top people results, right? And when you see it over time, you realize that dynamic, you're going to have the newer people to the organization. One or two will come out of the group and perform at a faster rate. And then the other ones, for whatever reason, you think they could do it, but it takes them a little longer. And then they move into the top quartile of the sales results, right? And to me, just observation wise, it's always kind of settled into this dynamic amongst teams and people that everybody fits their role. And your job is to just get people a little bit better than where they're at and ready to go to the next level. And to me, that's been the best successful teams. So maybe there's a better way, but it's worked well for us and worked well for me. I've had some. I try to hire really, really good people. I spend a lot of time doing it. I mean, some people actually think I'm a recruiter, and I'm not. I like to hire good people. It makes everybody's job more fun. And then you just have to nurture it, right? And be very sensitive to people's careers are important to them. And the whole organization is important to each individual. And that's what we try to do.
Yeah. All right. I've got two last questions for you.
Okay.
The first question is you had mentioned Brian Tracy earlier in our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of one or two of the biggest things, the biggest lessons that you got out of those Brian Tracy tapes?
I think one of the things, and I even teach this today, is Tracy has a vignette called "Eat That Frog," and the concept is do the hardest stuff first, and then the rest of the stuff is easy, right? And I even will do that today. Right, is I will do the hardest stuff first, and I teach that to the team. And sometimes I teach it and forget about it, and then years later, someone will tell me, "Oh, that was the best thing ever." Right, transfer of enthusiasm. So Tracy, right? It's early on that he really. The more I thought about it, I agreed with it. And then the other thing, and it's interesting, and I tell the students when they say, what should I study or prepare for? It's like, look, you go to YouTube and you look up Brian Tracy or there's a lot of people doing a lot of interesting things around sales and sales training. And it's all about the same, just delivered differently, right? And so if you research YouTube and watch videos, then eventually something's going to resonate with you that you can take and turn into your style. So if it's not Tracy, it may be somebody else. But that's the other thing is once I started looking for more of his stuff over the years, I found other people's stuff, and then I was able to read more. And at the end of the day, I mean, my profession is sales. Sales books aren't necessarily the most riveting to read, right? It's, a textbook of information that you kind of already know. But if you can pull one or two things out that help you, or even speech patterns or ways of doing things, that turns into a big deal. So.
Well, in a sense, you kind of get the process down a certain percent, call it 50, call it 80%. And then after that, you're not looking to throw out and redo the entire process. You're looking for little tweaks and refinements to fill in that remaining, maybe 20%, right, of your performance potential.
Yeah.
Well, my last question is kind of related, and I like to ask everybody, what are a few books, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 5, maybe you've got a whole library that you want to mention, but a few books that you think every sales leader needs to have on their shelf.
Yeah, I think in today's world in technology, the challenger sale is one, but you got to pay attention, right? I think that it's not a gloss over, because if you get it wrong, you can get it wrong big, right?
Big time.
And people talk about it a lot, and I always wonder if they actually got in and did 3 or 4 read throughs and took notes as if they were in a classroom. So challenger sale in technology is just imperative. I think. And actually, it's for managers, and I have my salespeople and staff read it as well. And it's the 1-minute manager. And the concept of we agree to what we're going to do over the next week, and then we go do it, and then we report back later. and everybody owns their own careers. And it really is this more professional way to have teams and build teams where everybody's responsible for their own performance. I think, although simplistic, we read it as managers, but I found where it was most effective is I would actually give it to my salespeople and tell them I wanted them to be 1-minute salespeople. And that's how we would run the team. And that works out really well. And they can read it. It's a small book that salespeople don't like to read large books. So if you have a pamphlet type book, they're always better at that.
Yep. Good. So those are the two.
Those are the two.
Perfect. That's it for this interview. I hope you got something valuable out of it. Of course, if you did, be sure to subscribe and rate this podcast on whatever app you use to listen. Also, share this with your colleagues and friends, and let's continue to have a deeper discussion on all things related to selling and sales leadership. See you next time in the Sales Lab.